Hello, I just have a person, she's been drinking and she's just vomiting and she's asleep.
Okay, now tell me exactly what's happened.
It looks like too she's been in an argument or a fight and she's been hit.
So she's been a victim of an assault?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any serious bleeding?
I can't see any.
So was the assaulter known to the patient?
Yeah, I think it's her boyfriend, yeah. His son said he just arrived when they were arguing. There's only two of them in the house.
Right.
They were arguing and he hit her in the mouth and then he left.
Okay.
And,
so he hit her in the mouth?
Yeah.
In 1976, our older sister was killed, and 3 years later she was born, and she was named after our older sister. And the whole whānau knew Wowo was our second chance, you know, and everybody loved her. Everybody loved her.
She was a beautiful person, and she was a people's person. All the works at the marae and that, she was the person that had everyone else on the go with her, like her cousins. Good to work with, easy person to get on with. She's got a mouth, you think it's a real pākehā, but when it opened that mouth, there's the Māori mouth right there.
She was so fair, my daughter was the darkie. And yes, they went through a lot of putu times together, playing around as kids do, and a lot of good memories of her. Lovely child, lovely, lovely child.
She's wonderful. She was such a wonderful person. Just everybody loves her. She's left such a big hole. She had a laugh and a way of sort of making a situation that might have otherwise been sad or a bit tense, not so. She was just wonderful. Great aunt, light of the room, you know, she just, the laugh, the stories she would tell.
What's her name?
Her name's Patricia
Yep.
McGrath. Hey. Whoa.
1 o'clock, my wife got up to feed our youngest daughter, and she noticed my phone was buzzing on the bench, and basically she ran in and said there's something wrong happening because the phone just had lots and lots of missed calls. So I checked the phone, and Ivy, who is my older brother's wife, was pretty much leaving message after message saying that Wowo had gone into hospital, and basically she said that the doctors told her that Wowo wasn't going to make it. They'd kind of given her 24 hours to live. It just felt like, yeah, I was going to have a heart attack, you know. It was so painful, yeah. I remember saying to Kate, my heart is sore, you know.
They said, you have to come up to the hospital straight away. They don't know if Patricia is drunk or what, but they couldn't wake her up. And all I said in my head, I hope that B didn't do that to her. And I wasn't wanting to scream or anything in that. I was just blank out and wild inside me.
I don't believe it, I can't believe it, not her. She was such a strong-minded woman. Very hurting. Didn't want to believe it at all.
I knew straight away what had happened. It was just your stomach drops, and you just feel sick, and it's surreal. It's not real.
You know, we had only been split up for 14 months, and for someone to ring me and tell me that my mother has 24 hours to live, and someone I spent 16 years with, and had 2 children with the years, it's really quite hard to explain, you know.
Patricia had sustained a very serious head injury, a subdural hematoma, which the outlook was very, very grim.
She had a bruise, which was really not telling the whole story. You can explain the injury as having had a bruise from the inside on her brain that was caused by a bleeding that occurred. Usually this will be because of what we call a blunt injury. It means a blunt object either decelerates on the skull and causes an artery or a vein or to start bleeding. This will cause what we call a hematoma, which is a collection of blood. And this collection of blood will grow bigger and bigger, and eventually will start to literally squeeze the blood supply of the brain to a point where none of the brain tissue or none of the brain areas receive any blood supply. And we all know that this is really critical, and it can take 3 minutes for some tissue to die. And this is basically what happened with Patricia.
One blow, one very, very hard blow, resulting in Patricia falling back and banging her head on the ground, was sufficient to cause that injury.
There's not really any way to prepare yourself for seeing somebody you love not just lying in a bed sleeping, because she wasn't. She was unconscious, she was injured, and you could see that.
I pretty much ran through to the ICU unit, and I saw the family all sitting in a waiting room, and I just basically ran in and said, "What's wrong?" And they said that they seemed to think the person my sister was with had hit her. And they basically told me like what Ivy told me on the phone, you know, that they don't think I was going to make it.
With that type of injury, the damage to the brain that was caused told there was no chance that she was going to survive. As a family member, you cling on to that small 1% chance maybe that there may be some miracle. She was kept on life support for I think about 4 days, but you know, we knew the outcome was going to be bad, and that's just for the family, for those children, it's just the worst thing that you could ever have to hear.
Yes, I went to visit her every day. We shared times of taking food up for all the whānau, and I even washed her and everything, spoke to her and tried our best to hopefully get her up and mobile, but that was no good.
You know, I didn't really go crazy or anything, but inside of me was that blinking hurt and anger. It was the anger that really got me going, you know, not crying and not thinking that about my girl. The sadness and then everything that we went through her, the days we watched up that hospital, right to that last day.
It was very clear that Patricia's brain was entirely non-functional when we made the decision. We have to discuss this with the family, and we do that because it's the right thing to do. And the family still held on to a miracle, which I really respected. And we continued treating Patricia, and she actually passed away without us having to stop the machine or switch the machines off or stop the life support that we were giving her at that point. So in some ways, I think Patricia made a decision herself.
It was all such a rush. The whole time was all such a chaotic time. I mean, I turned up at the marae and I had to say my last goodbye to my sister-in-law. and I had to watch my husband and her mother say goodbye.
And yeah, it just wasn't real, not at all. Like I didn't expect a phone call like what I got, let alone, you know, I thought I'd see her again one day, you know.
Being the last to bend down and kiss my daughter, I just let it all out. Let it right in there and finish. And I said, close her.
When we put the lid on my sister, which was it's just so raw. I remember looking at my mother, because you've like got the coffin there, and all the ladies, like my aunties and cousins, mum, they all there wailing away, and I was standing beside the coffin, and I remember mum going down to kiss her, you know, for the last time. No mother should do that. And it made me angry. It made me really angry.
If someone dies of eternal sickness and you caring for them and you see the suffering, you can understand that when they do go, you can see the relief of the pain that's been taken. But if in situations like this, we find it hard that the life was taken long before its time, and it does hit home bad and hard. So I can understand the frustrations of my sister, because she lost two daughters and they were very young.
We dressed her desk up for her, the big white ribbon in her photo, but that was really hard, because every morning you walked in, she wasn't there, but that was there. And it's not meant to be. The photo wasn't meant to be there. She was supposed to be in the seat.
Oh, overwhelming. Very overwhelming from the days leading up to it, you know, from sitting at the marae and trying to nurture her mum and her brothers and all her cousins and her children. It was, the people just, she was so loved. That's what that showed to me, so loved. They loved her like we loved her.
I went down to one of the cousins' houses to blow up a lot of helium balloons because I wanted more than anything else. Wowo loved all the kids out at the marae, as tutu as they could be. She just she really loved the kids, and I just wanted it to be a day that they'd remember, because they need to remember their Auntie Wowo.
I like to think that I love people and they can see me love them, but when I get in that courtroom, I'm a different person. I really am. You know, it's just like I just really want to wring this guy's neck, you know.
Oh, it's extremely difficult, particularly when you think about you've got the media there, you've got, you know, the two families in court together. They're having to run into each other. They're having to see the person who's done this to their loved one.
some of it I get my head around, and then I'm looking at all our family and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so hurtful. You know, watching different ones breaking down at different times. And I look at her children, that hurts me so much.
You get families who are going, you know, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years to a trial. I mean, they're having to relive what's gone on every time it goes to court.
He pleaded not guilty 3 times. And of course his last court case, he pleaded guilty. I just really want to know what's going on there and that, because I know he only would be in there, say, 2 years to 4 years the most. But in my heart, that ain't going to bring my daughter back.
There's something wrong with my iwi, ngāpuri. Our kaumata and Queer are busy talking about how good they are, how they've done this, they've done that, but yet their sons and their grandsons are busy killing all of our wahine. You know, it's time for the so-called leaders to stand up and look at things that's most important to them. Otherwise, they're just chopping these family trees down. That's what they're doing. And they're not even worried about it, because they're worried about their land claims, they're worried about this, worried about that. There's something far greater than that, a woman. Yeah.
Physical abuse, emotional abuse, and psychological abuse. They use a combination of all 3 generally. And generally we find that there's a cycle where in a relationship, you know, it starts off with little things of psychological abuse where, you know, might be you can't go out, start wearing those sorts of clothes, etc., etc. He may target the children or even friends and family, and it continues with that cycle, and then he starts using the power and starts using physical force on his victims.
It was what I could get at the expense of others. And so it was about having control over the situation. If I felt that I wasn't in control, then I became out of control. And I used anger to take that control back. I guess because I know that when I do raise my voice, when I do the threatening stare, that I know that there's going to be some form of submission from the recipient of my anger.
And quite often after that physical abuse has occurred, you'll find that there's a period of where things are really good again, and then all of a sudden the victim thinks, okay, well it was a one-off thing, it's not so bad, he's being nice to me again, and then it slowly starts again, and it just builds through the cycle of psychological, emotional abuse. It won't break. So a victim will have to start taking some of that power back, and you can do that by speaking to friends, coming to the police and reporting it. Any sort of abuse, start reporting it to the police, because then we can start intervening, and if we can then bring him to task for what's going on, then we may be able to stop it.
Domestic violence! Domestic violence! If you're a man, walk away! If you're a man, walk away!
What's happened to the family since my sister passed away? It's just a total mess.
So we have some conversations, and he says some things that I don't want to hear, because he's my husband and I don't want him to be feeling that way. I want him to be okay, but I am mindful of the fact that it's never going to be okay. This is never going to be okay.
To this day, I still cry. It hurts my heart very deeply.
You've got 2 young children who no longer have their mother for the rest of their lives. You've got parents who no longer have a daughter, siblings who no longer have a sister. friends who were friends of both the victim and the offender, who now all of a sudden are torn between him and her. Work colleagues that will be asking themselves, and family, was there something that they could have done, something that they've missed in that relationship, which they could have brought to someone's attention, which may have prevented this. And you always sort of get that when you start looking back and thinking, geez, was that a sign? And people start sort of blaming themselves in some ways.
It burdens you, and indeed it does. And not only on the day, it burdens you for forever almost. You know, you'd always think back to especially specific cases that were not unusual, but were very emotional for you as a person and for the family.
I think the biggest impact it's going to have on me going forward is really about the kids, and about their mum not being there when they have kids, their mother not being there when they get married, just big milestones in their life. I think there's always going to be that one empty chair.
For those on the outside who know for sure that there's something going on, do something about it. Whether it's your son or your son-in-law or nephew, he doesn't have to mean to kill her. He doesn't have to beat her black and blue and leave her in hospital. All it takes is one punch.
My violence got me nowhere. It actually got me what I wanted, but it was at the expense of my own family, my freedom. Lost some good friends because of my violence. But I'd just like to say this, that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. It's time for change.
I ask all mothers to keep an eye on their daughters, granddaughters and great. It's not a nice thing to go through for mothers like myself.
The hardest part of all of this is that she was gone, just vanished, and that was not her destiny. That's not how her life was supposed to be, I don't think. And her babies don't get to grow up with her.
In the Māori world, the first person that created was Hini Ahuone, who was a female, and they should be held up there. They're really tapu, We need to worship our women. And to have this happen to our women from our own men, it's just mind-blowing. It really is. It should not happen. It should not happen.
Enough is enough.
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 Try not to wake you up. It could be disastrous, so I keep my mouth shut. 'Cause you think that you own me, that you told me last night, and you as I crash down to the floor. You know it's not okay to make me feel this way. It's time to stand up and change what's going on today. Because you know you don't own me, that I'm telling you now. And you will never control me like you used to do so well. Enough is enough, I won't take any more. Enough is enough, won't be crushed in